So I think we all know that weight loss can be a long, frustrating, arduous process. Say you don't know what arduous means. Future me, look that up. Look up what arduous means while I keep talking. So if you tried losing weight in the past, you probably know it can be a really confusing, kind of frustrating experience, right? And I've experienced this as well. I'm someone who's bulked up to around 210 pounds and then cut down to 175, so losing about 35 pounds. And I do this regularly. Every winter I bulk up, and then for the summer I shred down a bit. Maybe not to that extent anymore, but I used to. So I know my fair share of dieting pains and struggles. So today I want to talk about 5 different things that I learned while losing weight, or that I wish I knew before I started. So without further ado, let's get started. So the first thing I want to touch on is water weight. So if you watch my previous videos, you know that you want to lose weight at about 1 pound per week, maybe upwards of 2 in very extreme cases. And when you step on the scale for the first week, you might notice that your weight goes down, down, down way quicker than that, upwards to around 5, 6, 7 pounds. So before you go and recalculate your calories thinking something's wrong, you should know that most of that is going to be water. See, this happens because our bodies have an energy store called glycogen that gets stored in our liver and in our muscles. See, glycogen is an energy store that we have to burn through before we get to our fat. So during the first week of cutting, you're actually getting rid of that glycogen instead of fat. And the reason that's such a big deal and noticing that your weight is dropping is that glycogen is a molecule that we call hydrophilic, or water loving. So whenever you have glycogen in your system, it's gonna soak up and pull a lot of water with it, right? So when you get rid of those glycogen stores, over time they go down, down, and down. That water is gonna rush away and be lost with it, right? And most people hold about 5 pounds of water weight when they lose their glycogen, and that weight generally gets lost very quickly in the first week. So don't be too alarmed if you're losing weight too fast, because it's really just water and you actually haven't burned any fat quite yet. You gotta get through those glycogen stores first before you can get to that fat. So the second thing that I wanna talk about is losing weight versus losing fat. See, there's a big difference in how your appearance will be after you reach your goal. When people talk about losing weight, they really mean they want to lose fat instead, right? Because obviously you have more in your body than just fat. When losing weight, right, it's really important that you emphasize the fat loss versus the weight loss, right? So all too often when people try to lose weight, sure, they lose some fat, but they also burn up some precious muscle. And if you want to look good, you need some muscle to give you some definition to push through that fat, right? And if you lose that muscle as long as fat, you're gonna end up being what people call skinny fat, where you're not exactly fat, but you don't really have any muscle tone either, so you don't look like you're very lean. So the reason that your body burns your muscle along with your fat is because people often go too fast and they go into starvation mode. So when I use the term starvation mode in this video, I don't quite mean it literally. Your body doesn't have a switch where it flips on and off to go into starvation mode versus not. It's a lot more of a gradual process, but when I say starvation mode, I just want you to get in your head that your body is undergoing some processes to start saving some energy, because you're not eating enough and you're in a calorie deficit because you're dieting. So I like to think about it as losing your job and having to budget your money, right? So when you lose your job, you're probably gonna look at your expenses and look at your bank account, your bank statements, and try to figure out where your biggest expenses are that you don't necessarily need and cut them out to save some money, right? So your body kind of does the same thing with calories. When you are in a diet long term, your body's gonna notice that it's not getting the energy that it needs to sustain itself, and it needs to tap into its fat energy savings, you could think of it as, to try to make up for that energy. So what your fat's gonna do is it's gonna look at its energy statement. I'm doing quotes a lot here. And it's gonna look at where are we burning energy the most, because we don't have a lot of energy to spare. And one of the places that it's gonna go to first is your muscle. So your muscle is a lot more metabolically active than fat tissue is, right? So it's going to see that as a large expense and want to get rid of it and wants to break it down so it's not burning as much of its calorie money as it does before. So if you break down your muscle while you're trying to lose weight, that kind of sucks, because muscle is one of the most metabolically active tissues. So it's gonna be burning a lot of your calories. And if you're losing that muscle and it's getting smaller and smaller, well, the amount of calories that you burn each day also gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And then soon you still can't eat as much calories as you could before, and that would kind of suck. So to prevent this, you kind of want to trick your body into thinking that we absolutely need this muscle and we cannot do without it, right? So just like you got your car payments, you got rent, food, those are some expenses that you really can't get rid of and survive. Well, I guess you can still survive, but you know what I mean. So you gotta make your body think that your muscle is one of these expenses that you just cannot get rid of. And you do this by lifting weights. So your body doesn't know whether you're in a cool, nice, air-conditioned gym or you're fighting grizzly bears to survive, right? So if you do a lot of intense weight training, right, your muscles don't know whether you're running from a saber-toothed tiger, running for your life, or you're burning calories in the gym, right? All it knows is the tension and the weight that it feels in order to stay around. So by putting a lot of stress on your muscles, your body is gonna think that, holy crap, we need this muscle to survive, otherwise we might literally die. And that's how you keep it around, by lifting weights and making it think that it's a necessary evil that it needs to keep around, and therefore you can keep spending your calories that way. So when you're losing weight, you really gotta make muscle gain if you're new to the gym, or muscle retention if you've been lifting for a while, to keep your calorie budget up. Inevitably, if you diet down too fast or you get down too low, you're gonna break down muscle no matter what. Sometimes you just can't get around it if you go too harshly and too fast. So that's why I recommend going up to around 1 pound per week, because that's a great middle ground between you achieving your goals really quickly and going slow enough where you get to retain your muscle and not have to lose those precious gains of yours. Also, really quick, when you're trying to lose weight and want to preserve that muscle, also be sure to make sure that you're eating enough protein. Usually, a general rule of thumb is about 1 gram of protein per pound of body weight. And another great way for you to preserve some muscle is actually hitting like and subscribe, right? If you don't believe me, go ahead, try it, see what happens, I dare you. So the next tip that I want to talk about, number 3, is all about saving your metabolism. So our bodies are really great at adapting to whatever scenario that we're in, right? So if people couldn't do that, then we wouldn't be around here as a species today. So along with burning up muscle, unneeded muscle, your body's really good at changing what activities that you do subconsciously. So if you diet too quickly and go into that survival mode, then your body's gonna, again, look towards that budget to turn some things off. So what it can do is it's actually going to reduce your NEAT, or your non-exercise activity thermogenesis. If you want to learn more on that, I'll put a link up here to a video where I talk about what all that stuff is. But for those of you who haven't seen it, it's basically just all the calories that you burn from just basically normal movements, like walking around getting groceries, bobbing your head to music, right? All these things that aren't considered exercise, but get you moving and burning calories. So when your body goes into survival mode, it's going to lessen the amount of NEAT that you have each day by lessening the amount that you want to walk, lessening the amount of that you're fidgeting and moving around, and that's going to overall drop how many calories that you burn in a day. So let's do a little thought experiment here. So let's say that you try to push your diet a little bit too hard and you drop an extra 200 calories in order to get to your goal faster. So what you might start feeling if you drop 200 more calories is you're going to start feeling lethargic, you're going to feel really, really tired, right? And if you're starting to feel those things, that's a sign that your NEAT is being lowered and lowered to match that calorie restriction, right? So sure, you might lose a little bit of extra weight right away, but soon your metabolism and your NEAT is going to catch up, and you're going to end up breaking even and losing just as much weight as you did before. So I'm not saying that you're going to jump out of bed every single day feeling amazing when losing weight, but you shouldn't feel like super sluggish, like you have 100 pounds on your shoulders moving around, or that you just cannot wake up. If you do, that's a sign you might want to add an extra 100 calories or so to see if you start feeling better. If not, add another 100, add another 100, until you feel like you have at least some sustainable good energy to keep you going throughout the day. So the fourth thing that I want to talk about is giving yourself a time buffer. So if you have a goal or an end date where you want to reach your fat loss by, you might want to give yourself an extra 1 or 2 week buffer, because inevitably you're probably gonna mess up. And believe it or not, I'm not actually that perfect either. I know, but I do mess up sometimes. And honestly, we're all human, right? Sometimes that pizza looks a little too good to resist, or maybe you messed up counting your calories and you ended up eating too many. And you know what? that's totally okay. Be okay with being set back 1 or 2 weeks. This is all about the journey and not necessarily the end goal. So you want to make it enjoyable and make it so you don't have to be super strict and hating your life every second of it. You should be able to have a little bit of flexibility and a little bit of wiggle room for things and big events to come around for you to live your life. So everybody's a little different, but I recommend giving yourself about a 1 to 2 week buffer depending on how long you're losing weight for. That should give you some wiggle room and really give you some peace of mind that if you do mess up eventually, that's going to be totally okay and you're going to reach your goals in the long run. So for this one, I want to get a little bit closer because this one's a lot more personal, and this is really just being nice to yourself and forgiving yourself for the mess ups that you're eventually going to make. So this one might get a little bit personal, so I apologize if it's a little much, but even if it helps one person to hear this, it'll totally be worth it. So obviously mess ups are going to happen, right? Not everyone has unlimited willpower. Not everyone can be super 100% disciplined all the time, and you're gonna mess up eventually, right? You're only human, and your body is literally trying to keep itself at homeostasis, so keeping it at a base level, right? And it wants to stay the same because if it stays the same, it knows it's alive now. And if it changes, it might not be, right? So when you're losing weight, you're really fighting your body's natural instincts to actually stay the same. And you're just gonna lose that fight once in a while, most likely. So if that happens, just don't get down on yourself. So remember when I first started losing weight, right? I would eat somewhere around 400 to 800 calories a day when really I should have been eating somewhere close to 2300, right? So that's like a 2,000 calorie deficit. Obviously, that's something that I didn't know at first, right? And this is something that I want to share with you guys to make sure you don't make the same mistake that I did. Over time, my appetite would become absolutely voracious and I'd want to eat anything that I could see. And it got to the point where my subconscious mind literally forced me to eat food because I just wasn't eating. And when this happened, I would feel super guilty and I'd feel super bad. I felt like I failed, that I wasn't good enough, and then I had to make up for that mess up somehow. So the first thing that I did was actually I had this certain shirt that I used to wear and I absolutely hated how I looked in it. I don't know why I still kept it around, but what I'd do is I'd force myself to wear that shirt and go to the gym and look at myself to shame myself to actually stay more disciplined, stay with the diet, and increase willpower. Obviously, that didn't really work very well. And also another thing that I would do was just not eat the next day, like at all, because I had to make up for that weight and I couldn't give myself that wiggle room or that extra 1 or 2 weeks that I recommended, because it had to be done right now and it had to be done right. And I remember hearing this one study where they So I don't exactly remember where I heard this from, but there was a study where they took a bunch of people who were trying to lose weight. What they did is they offered free unlimited donuts for all the participants and urged them to eat as many as they wanted. So the participants did, who's not going to eat free donuts, and they split them into 2 groups. So the first group, they said, hey, look, I know you're on a diet, it's totally okay, just get back up on the horse, keep doing what you're doing, everything's gonna be fine. And they went on to keep losing weight as normal. And then in the second group, this was terrible, but they ended up shaming them and like, wow dude, you just really messed up your diet, didn't you? Like it's gonna take you so long to regain all this progress, it's gonna suck. And what happened is that those people actually ended up gaining weight more and more because they had all of this negative energy in their head. So looking at the study, I'm going to try to find the link if I can. I think I heard it on a YouTube video from Greg O'Gallagher, Kinobody. But one unintended lesson that I really did end up learning that's been helping me probably the most out of all of these is that whatever energy you get into your head about dieting and weight loss, it's gonna come back tenfold. So if you're really negative and you're like, man, this is so hard, I can't do this, that's gonna come back tomorrow 10 times harder. And that's why a lot of people fail, is because they just have such a negative view and such a defeatist view of weight loss, and it doesn't have to be that way. If you're really forgiving to yourself and you're like, you know what, I messed up, I'm human, that's okay. Whenever I started thinking of it that way, I lose weight so much easier, and it's been one of the best tips and one of the best things that I've ever actually learned to lose weight. So if you're still not sure where to start on your own fat loss journey, if you're completely brand new to this, welcome to the channel. This is what that channel is all about. So go ahead, I'm gonna leave a link to a playlist for weight loss for beginners. So go ahead, Click that, watch that from the beginning to really build a nice foundation of information for you to start losing weight. I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Psych, still here. So the fourth thing, next, the fourth, tip number 4. The fourth, is that fourth? The first, second, third, fourth.